Everyone. It is now 1 o'clock and I'd like to call the December 11th meeting of the UWP committee to order. I'd like to welcome you and quickly remind you of some logistics. If you're in the room, the closest restrooms are straight out the back door to the left of the reception desk. If you're in the room and you haven't already, please make sure to do the sign-in sheet in the hallway. Members of the audience who would like to make public comments should fill out a public comment form. But it's just Terry, and I bet she does not want to make a public comment. This meeting is being broadcast on Zoom and is being recorded. For those online to hear what is being said in the room, please make sure that we all use our microphones. Touch the button on the mic to turn it on and off. The green light indicates it's on. It also remains a best practice to continue to identify ourselves when making a motion or a second. For those participating via Zoom, do we have anybody via Zoom? Okay, great. For those participating via Zoom, please keep your microphones muted unless you are called upon to speak. When appropriate in the agenda, I will request comments from those online, and you can indicate your desire to speak via the chat box or using the raise your hand function. Staff monitoring Zoom will recognize you when it's your turn to speak. With that, let's start off today with some self-introduction of all the members of the table. I'm Megan Swanson, Chair of the Committee, representing IDOT. To my right,
Amy Lee, representing CMAP.
Scott Hennings, representing the counties.
Heidi Lichtenberger, representing Council of Mayors.
John Paul Diepla, representing FHWA.
Chris Skogsbakken, representing PACE.
Heather Mullins, representing the Regional Transportation Authority.
Buck Doyle, representing CDOT.
Christina Bader with CTA.
Dustin Clark, representing Metra.
okay, we have a voting quorum of voting members present. So thank you everybody for being here today. And the first item on our agenda is agenda changes and announcements. The staff has no changes or announcements, but do any of you wish to propose additional agenda changes or make any announcements? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. We have before us the draft minutes of August 14th, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, signify by saying no. The motion carries. Moving on to new business. Kama is going to talk to us today, Kama Dobbs, to provide us with an update on the status of invoicing for FY25 projects. Take it away, Kama.
All right, thank you, Megan. At your place is a summary of invoices received for each of the federal fiscal year 25 contracts. That's updated through December 4th from our finance team. As you can see on that summary, most of the agencies are significantly behind on their invoicing. So just wanted to remind everyone that it's important for not only budgeting and cash flow, but also compliance with your contracts to stay up to date with invoicing on at least a quarterly basis. The more up to date and informed we are on everybody's progress, that gives us some flexibility if, folks are running a little over or a little under. So keeping up to date on those invoices is important. So please do your best to catch up as soon as possible.
I just wanted to add to this. CTA just got our core contract from CMAP like a month ago. So
Understood.
That's why we haven't invoiced anything.
Understood.
Yeah, I'll just flag Voss has just joined us. So if Voss is our new Deputy of Finance and Administration, you're probably picking up on the fact that we've had some turnover in that department, but he is here joining us. If you have any follow-up questions, we can try to handle those.
Yeah. And if you see anything on this summary that's wrong, doesn't match your records, let us know. You can reach out to me and I'll work with finance to track down anything that may not be correct.
Does anybody have anything else for Kama about this topic? Okay. Moving on to the FY 26 core budget development, Kama is going to review the draft core program and remind us of the next steps in the FY 26 UWP development process.
All right. So the memo in your packet describes the development process for staff's recommendation to not only CMAP's executive team, but to the Transportation Committee and MPO for setting aside funding for both core and competitive activities for all of you for federal fiscal year. I do it again because I deal in federal fiscal years and everything but the so for fiscal year 26. As noted, we received budget requests from 16 agencies, which includes the 11 councils, CDOT, Pace Metro, and CTA, as well as the McHenry County DOT. Staff did work with some individual agencies, including a couple of the councils, CDOT and Metro, to make some minor revisions that had little or no impact on the bottom line amounts of funding requested. We also worked with CTA to make adjustments to staff hours to ensure that individual staff were not budgeted for more hours than they can possibly work in a year, and to bring the overall request into closer alignment with the rest of the submittal. So I do want to say thank you to CTA for working with us on that and getting what was an 18% increase request down to an 8% increase, which is more in line with everybody else. The resulting recommended core program for external agencies is about 5.67 million. Adding in the 1.1 million in competitive program commitments that we made last year, the total FY26 allocation to external agencies is proposed to be 6.7 million, which is up about 12% over fiscal year 25. This 6.7 million was subtracted from the region's mark, which was provided by IDOT in November. That mark is 34.3 million, which left 27.5 million to be included in CMAP's operating budget. The CMAP work plan is still under development, so only the total for CMAP is shown in the table today. I did also want to note that overall, the region's mark is down just a little bit from last year. It's less than 1%. And CMAP's proposed allocation is down about 2.7%. So that lets those external requests, particularly the competitive program, go up a bit over last year. So, as you all know, the methodology we adopted last year doesn't call for this committee's approval, but I want to know if anybody has any questions or concerns about the proposal, which is going to be presented to the Transportation Committee next Friday.
I'll make a note for Metro's budget. We submitted a budget that had a decrease from prior year. As we've staffed up, we've had more younger staff taking on project work. So some of the senior staff hours dropped off. That's not something I think we'll see year to year, but
Sure.
this year, here we are.
Appreciate that context, Dustin. Anybody else have comments or questions or concerns about this proposal for FY26? None? We're going to be a really short meeting today. So I do want to say, next week, the Transportation Committee is going to be asked to approve the same table that's in our memo today and to recommend that the MPO incorporate these funding levels into the FY26 UWP document, which will go to the MPO in draft form in January. The CMAP board is going to be provided with the draft CMAP work plan in January as well, and a draft budget in February. So they'll make final budget approval action in March, I believe. So if anything in the CMAP budget does end up affecting this recommended proposal, that gives us the March MPO meeting for them to take action to make any changes. And we would certainly notify this committee if there was any major change that resulted out of the CMAP budget process. We'll also send everybody out the table of the allocations of the CMAP budget to the activity, so to the TIP and the long range plan. So fill in the TBDs on this table today. One side note, just for the sake of everyone here, I did want to let you know that funding for CMAP's ETIP database, which is about $400,000 a year and is used by everyone in this room, is not included in this budget because CMAP has been working with IDOT and the rest of the MPOs in the state to bring everybody onto the ETIP platform statewide. And so as a result of those discussions, IDOT is actually picking up 100% of that database cost for us. So, and as well as the other MPOs. So if anybody's looking at the CMAP budget, why did we go down in the tip? That's going to be why, because that's been picked up statewide. So that was all I had today. Megan, was there anything additional from IDOT's perspective on this?
No, we're just really excited. And we have been working really hard with CAMA and CMAP to get the statewide tip rolled out. And we're excited for everybody else to be able to use this tool because it's really a great tool to have access to. So we're really looking forward to that for next year. Does anybody have any additional questions or concerns before we move on?
Just a question about the ETIP, if I may. Are there any planned changes from the interface that we see and that we utilize as you transition to statewide ETIP?
There won't be changes related to the statewide transition. We are transitioning to an upgraded platform by the same provider. That process has been ongoing since early summer. So hoping to, staff is in the testing mode with that right now. So data has been transferred over. We've identified a couple bugs, but we think we'll have user testing in January or February. We'll have training sessions provided by the consultant as well as CMAP staff. With the next tip change cycle being in February, we're hoping to either do it in parallel or switch to entirely to the new platform. I think we're gonna be in parallel, honestly, for that cycle, just so that we can make sure that everything is capturing correctly. But it's a much more up-to-date look and feel. There's a lot more sorting and filtering that can be done. So, right now we're limited to kind of filtering by fund source, not a lot of work type filtering, and pretty much every field that's in the ETIP database now, you'll be able to filter on and sort on in the new platform. So I think that, from a data entry perspective, it looks different, but it's the same fields. But from a reporting standpoint, it's a lot more robust. So we're looking forward to that. And that's the platform that the statewide will be implemented on as well.
And when we say statewide too, we don't mean that everybody's going to see everyone else's tip information. It's going to be an individual tip for each of the MPOs. And you're only going to continue to have access to the information that you currently have access to. They'll have access to their own information. We say statewide because we're rolling it out statewide.
When is this going to Transportation Committee? Is it this month or?
Yes, this month.
Okay.
Yep, next week. Packet will be out on Friday.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay, we're really looking forward to it. So
Thank
we
you.
can move on. So very important, moving on to our proposed meeting dates for this coming year. In your packet, you have a memo laying out the staff's proposed schedule for our meetings in in 2025, along with the topics expected to be on the agenda at each meeting. Next year, there will be a call for FY27 to FY31 competitive program projects. So the schedule was developed with that in mind. Meetings are proposed to be held in this room at CMAP at 1 o'clock. All dates are Wednesday except for October, which is proposed for Thursday in part to avoid conflicts with the annual joint meeting of the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee. Hopefully we have all at the table reviewed these dates and are confident that either we or our designee can be in attendance on each of those dates. Therefore, I'd like to request a motion to approve the 2025 meeting calendar as presented. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Now, a high point of the meeting, we're so excited to hear from Metra. They are going to give an overview of their sustainability plan work that was funded with an FY21 competitive grant. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dustin.
Thank you. Yeah, and we might have a colleague joining us. He was caught up in a meeting, I believe, but do you want to clarify? We had the FY21 funds for downtown connection study. Of course, the pandemic happened right about then. So thank you to the committee for allowing us the flexibility to switch us over to our sustainability plan. This is Metro's first ever sustainability plan. It is a multi-part, multi-plan or suite of plans even. So if we could go to the next slide here. We have advanced through our phase 1, task 1 and task 2 at this point. We initiated this plan in January, had quite a bit of time in our landscape assessment, as we called it, to understand what exactly the plan wants to focus on, what Metro's future is in drawing down our carbon emissions. And then we moved on to our current phase 2, task 3. That's a greenhouse gas emissions calculation. Accounting of what we put out into the environment, but also avoided emissions that are saved by Metro providing service across the region. And task 4 will move on to a decarbonization strategy and a climate action plan. Climate action plan will be in the template that the FTA has put out for transit agencies across the country to utilize. CTA, I believe, submitted a climate action plan last year, PACE a few years back, both with the bus electrification plans. And then in phase 3, we'll move on to a sustainability report that's a whiles off. And by that point, we believe we will have exhausted the UWP competitive funding. So we'll begin to put in other funding sources to continue this planning effort. And next slide, please. So over this time of phase 1, task 1 and 2, our deliverables include our sustainability initiatives that we're already doing and that are already taking place within our agency. We have had a 2-day session workshop with internal stakeholders. Our executive team had a few members on that 2-day intensive discussion, and then we developed some initial targets for multiple disciplines. And this follows the ESG, environmental, social, and governance kind of structure that is put out there in many sustainability plans. And I apologize, the formatting here got a little warped in the transition, but on the next slide, we'll talk a little more about the current work being accomplished. We have a GHG inventory, as I mentioned, being developed with 2023 as the base year. We found that important because that's when our ridership started to pick up from post-pandemic times. So we will have fresh data to provide to the other regional partners and to CMAP as you initiate your next planning effort. We're developing a Power BI dashboard. A few other agencies, transit agencies in the country, offer this as a public information tool. And we believe that this will also help us with some of our discretionary grant applications. So again, great work from being funded by this UWP pot of money that will help us hopefully pull in more federal funding into the region. And then in task 3C, we'll dive into our avoided emissions calculations. APTA has some quantifying methodology guidance provided in 2017. We will also pull in CMAP's travel demand model. So parlaying the work that CMAP has already done here into our plan. Next slide, please. And then a simple Gantt chart over the next 6 months, what we can expect to work on. Some of these tasks may slide into that April and May timeframe, so that's why we've included that there. This is all contingent upon us gathering the data that we need to make our calculations. That is quite a hurdle to pull all that data together. So task 3 is well underway, and I think when we look at the invoicing summary for this plan, we'll be in a very, very good spot, especially once this quarter and then invoicing hits. So once again, thank you to the committee and to CMAP for providing us that flexibility. A lot of good work is underway and much more to follow. Thanks for the time allowing us to provide an update.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Amy.
Hi, thanks for that presentation. It's really good for us to see how the dollars are being used, and it's really nice to see how that builds up into our regional goals. I don't know if there's an opportunity to do this, but it would be nice if we can maybe coordinate with you all on your methodology related to the modeling that you're going to be doing. We're doing a lot of modeling on GHG emissions and reduction efforts. And so there could be some synergies there to just make sure we're all using the same assumptions and end up with numbers that actually make sense together. So if there's an opportunity to do that, we'd love that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're giving the presentation, we had the meeting a little bit quicker pace than we expected, but Jack Behrens, he is our project manager on this sustainability plan. So we're looking to, work more hand in hand with CMAP on the avoided emissions and other data, emissions modeling data.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak a little more to how avoided emissions are defined, because clearly, I mean, there's an assumption made, whether the assumption's like, the emissions avoided from, and assuming you would have taken a car otherwise, so, and of course, these calculations could be pretty complicated, a lot of aspects going into it. So I was wondering if you could flesh out a little bit what avoided emissions means or how it's defined.
Sure. And Jack, if you have any ideas here, podium's all yours if you wish. I'll start by saying we will kind of take an iterative approach, see what data we have on hand and how fine-tuned and defined we can get here. Another assumption could be made is if Metro didn't exist, that person may not take that trip, so you're not actually avoiding emissions there. But Jack, do you want to add any context to that?
Good afternoon. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I would leave that up to my experts at Arcadis leading the project, so I could definitely follow up with them about that. I mean, I know we're using a few tools that Dustin had handpicked for the avoided emissions calculation, but we're just getting started on that probably right here in January. So that'll be something we'll have to figure out with Arcadis, and I'll definitely be paying attention to that.
A follow-up question then, taking a step back, who is the target audience for the calculator? Like, is it just your average dude, taking the train, or is it, for bureaucratic planning, or?
Dustin, correct me if you have a different assumption, but I would say just the average Chicagoland citizen. So
Yeah, absolutely. We do think we'll get enough data that is pertinent to our discretionary grant opportunities as well, and parlay that into applying to the federal opportunities that are out there.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Dustin. I do hope that Metra goes out to do presentations on what comes of this plan. I think, the county would love to sort of see at the end of the process, sort of a summary of how Metra is contributing to the climate change issue. And, maybe future committee meetings at CMAP's Transportation Committee could be in order if and when this project comes to the end. I think just, I'd love this not to just sit on the shelf and not, only be used for grant apps. I want to make sure people get the information that you guys have come up with. So good work, and thanks for sharing this today.
thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much. Is there anybody else who'd like to talk about one of their projects? Think about it for next time. So let's see, do any of you have any other business to bring before the committee? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to public comment. Staff did not receive any written public comment prior to the meeting. Do we have any online attendees? Okay, we have no one to give public comment today. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to address the committee? Okay. Seeing and hearing no other comments. Based on our earlier action, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 14th at 1:00 p.m. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Okay, everybody have a great holiday season.